online training from our normal scheduled over 20-year trainings. Today's training is on innovator versus entrepreneur. We're going to talk about all the nuances of innovation as well as entrepreneurship on how to make money off of those ideas. Um, also, we have season 2 being filmed. So starting that on Tuesday, we have expanded it out with Bloomberg to an hour. So we'll have 5 classic vignettes where you'll really learn about the entrepreneur, see their pitch. So if you haven't tried out, please do. Next week's training, BYOQ. You bring the questions, I'll bring the answers. Ask me anything Friday as well as Mondays. All of it's available, Billionaires, Millionaires, Entrepreneurs, and all the trainings on the playbook. And if you need anything, just reach out directly to me, david@dmeltzer.com. david@dmeltzer.com. We'll put that in the chat. Last but not least, before we get going, put your questions in. They're already loading up in there. Go ahead, get your questions for the second half of training. Always have a great Q&A session. So thank you so much for loading up those questions for us. And you can join us for those Q&A on Clubhouse as well. Thank you, everyone. All right, let's get started. The difference or variance between an innovator and an entrepreneur is that an innovator creates new products. An inventor and innovator is someone who focuses almost solely on creating and building a product, where an entrepreneur creates companies around those products, services, or solutions. They create companies and are individuals who are focused primarily on building shareholder value. Innovators create new ideas and new ways of doing things. Entrepreneurs build businesses around those. And a lot of times I think people get confused on whether they're an innovator or an entrepreneur. The way that I look at it is we need innovation, right? Innovation has a mathematical advantage where we take something or nothing and we imagine something from that. And the minute you imagine what it is that you want to create or what you want to make better, the minute you do that, we have a mathematical advantage because we've gone from what is to something better, which is a possibility. There is a mathematical advantage of being an innovator that we want to innovate to possibilities. And then that innovation needs some inspiration. And the inspiration is understanding that possibility and aligning it with our values of what it is, who, and how. And when we do that, we get clarity on what it is. It starts refining itself and evolving itself. And we balance it within the context of our values each day. We talk about taking inventory of our values and making sure that it's aligned there. And then once we have that, we can focus in on it. We can be a student of it. We can pay attention to it and give intention to it to create that coincidence that we want. And when we put attention and intention into our imagination, we become inspired. It clears away the interference. It allows us to be in the flow, and it takes that possibility and creates a mathematical advantage to make it a probability. Possibility to probability is an innovation that now has clarity, balance, focus, and inspiration. And it's aligned with our what we want value-wise, who can help us, and of course, how we're going to get it. After probability, in comes the entrepreneur who's going to build a business around it using different disciplines, strategies, and of course, elevating the awareness, usually through branding, in order to what? Take that probability and make it a profit, to make it a perspective, to make it a reality. Possibility to probability, all innovation, all creativity, all well-knowing, a mathematical transcendence that's very valuable. And then from probability into profit, that's the entrepreneur's duty, responsibility, and job to increase that shareholder value. Now, the classic example that I can give you between an innovator and an entrepreneur is asking everybody here a simple question. Does anybody here know who Richard James or Morris James McDonald's are? Morris James McDonald, Richard James McDonald. They're probably, to me, some of the greatest innovators of all time. And yet they're barely or rarely known. They're two American brothers from California here in San Bernardino, and they invented the speedy service system, now commonly known as fast food. And they also founded a small company that I think I read recently makes $23 billion a month, called McDonald's. But yet, if you ask anyone who the founder of McDonald's is and the founder of franchises is, most people would tell you Ray Kroc. That's because Ray Kroc probably is one of the most extraordinary entrepreneurs of all time, who built a business around the innovations of the McDonald's brothers. And not only did he build the business around it, but he was so aggressive in doing so, he actually bought the rights to be called the founder, and historically now creating the largest franchise and owning the system called the Speedy Service System, which was an incredible innovation that an entrepreneur took and monetized. In other words, they created a possibility into a probability, and Ray Kroc took that probability into extraordinary profit. And I highly suggest anyone who hasn't seen the documentary The Founder or read about the McDonald brothers or Ray Kroc to do so. Great illustration of possibility to probability, but how important it is from probability to perspective or profit. Innovation focuses on process, and it can utilize tools like mind mapping. Mind maps enhance the productivity and the efficiencies, the statistical success, and the benefits of mind mapping, if you've never heard of it, are not limited to education. They can be very useful in commercial spheres as well. Mind mapping enables you to learn faster, communicate more effectively and efficiently. It also allows you to collaborate well and brainstorm well. So, utilizing mind map, the visualization of mapping of innovation in order to apply future businesses around it or profitability around it, but the efficiencies, effectiveness, and statistical successes, whether it's in education or in business, mind mapping is a great tool to draw out, to create flows, to understand and see exactly how an idea works. It also allows you to connect the dots backwards. I was recently with one of the dragons from Dragon's Den, and it was amazing because he utilized mind mapping and connecting the dots backwards, I think even better than Steve Jobs. It was incredible how he could go ahead and place the pieces together of an idea or an innovation in order to determine whether it's a good investment or not. Right? There's a million great ideas out there. That doesn't mean you want to invest in it if you can't take that probability and make it a profitability or a perspective, a reality. One of the tools besides mind mapping that we can utilize in innovation is TRIZ problem solving. It's a Russian problem solving theory of inventive problem solving. And that's where that TRIZ comes from. And the idea of TRIZ allows you to work through and codify principles to the creative process to make it more predictable, more of a probability. In other words, whenever you're facing somebody somewhere that has already solved it some way, the creative problem solving involves finding a solution and adapting it to your problem. So the idea of the TRIZ system is that we commonly use this process management, engineering, creativity with 4 basic steps. Number one, most people don't do this. And it's why when you're making investments, it's so important. You need to define your specific problem, right? You, in case of investment, to define a specific problem would be to know your timing and risk tolerance. So number one, write down, define the specific problem. So many people try to work in an obtuse vehicle of ideas and imagination, and they end up with unrealistic expectations and solutions. 2, find the TRIZ generalized problem that matches it. So the theory of TRIZ says, okay, if I can define a specific problem, then I could also then find a general problem that matches it. And so we take a very specific problem that we're having and we find a more general, higher level problem that matches it. Number two. Number three, we find that general solution that solves the generalized problem. So we go from specific to a general problem, then we find a generalized solution because these are more commonly accessible generalized problems and generalized solutions that have reoccurred. It's kind of like why people study history, right? Because human nature never changes. Well, needs and problems, they vary in subtleties, but in generalities, we can solve them and then give the specificity that's necessary, which takes us to the fourth step, which is adapt the generalized solution to solve your specific problem. So we go from a specific problem in identifying, which is usually the step that people miss. Then we find a general solution for a specific problem. We find then the a general problem that matches the specific problem. Then we find third, the general solution for that general problem. And then we adapt it to our specific problem and we create a specific solution to our specific problem. This theory allows us step by step to go from possibility to probability and probability to perspective. And utilizing that, let's take a look at the two different concepts behind generalized problems, solutions, and eliminating the contradictions that exist within those. And so I'm looking here. I'm just going to go ahead and switch this. I apologize. Let me give you an example. An umbrella should be large enough to keep the rain off, but to be small enough to be maneuverable in a crowd, right? We can solve these contradictions with a separation principle. So looking at this, the generalized problems and solutions. All right, number one, primary findings are problems and solutions are repeated across industries and sciences by representing a problem as a contradiction. We explore this later, and you can predict creative solutions to that problem, like the rain and the umbrella. Patterns in technical evolution tend to repeat themselves across industries and sciences, and creative innovations often use scientific effects outside of the field where they were developed. And otherwise, we take a specific problem, find a general problem, get the general solution, and then adapt it to the specific, and then we have a specific solution. And so by using this methodology of contradiction, we're able to figure out how exactly to find that solution. Another fundamental contradiction is the reliable way to solve and eliminate these is one, technical contradictions. The trade-off solution where we can reach the desired state because something else in the system prevents something else. In other words, when something gets better, something else automatically gets worse. So for example, if a product gets stronger, then for example, if a product is stronger, it's good, but it's heavier, so that's bad. Or service is customized to each customer, which is good, but the service delivery system gets too complicated or too expensive, that's bad. Training is comprehensively good, but it keeps employees away from their assignments, bad. And so we need to use this idea of eliminating the contradiction through technical contradictions. Let me give you an example. I started and went to a money workshop, and in the money workshop, when I took it, it shifted my perspective and my energy about money, my relationship with money, and it released all types of blockages, shifted my energy. It was an extraordinary workshop. And I came back to the office to tell one of my business partners that immediately I started to double my productivity, that my relationship to money, that I made twice as much money than I normally did, simply because I shifted my mindset, my heart set, and my energy towards money. I shifted my relationship, my quantum relativity to money. And so my business partner, who's very open-minded, he said, that's awesome. Let's do it for the whole company. At the time we had 100 employees. And I said, oh, no, we can't do that. said, what are you talking about? Well, it costs too much money, to have everybody out of the work force from, this workshop Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They'd miss a whole day of work. We'd lose way too much money. And he looked at me dumbfounded. He's like, Dave, are you kidding me? What are you talking about? We're going to lose money. I said, well, because we have 100 employees, let's just say on average, that make $100,000. This is a lot of money for one day of productivity. He said, David, you just told me within a week you doubled the amount of money you made. Imagine if we teach every one of our employees to be twice as productive and make twice as much money. Who cares if they miss a week or a month? We'll make it up in a matter of days. And this is so often true when people don't look to eliminate the contradictions. They look to delve into resistance or the contradictions that appear that either this is good or this is bad. We actually can utilize a analysis of that. Another one is, when a manager doesn't make a plan in order to create that probability into profit, and they have to take, for example, they're overloaded. I'll use a movie theater, and they need someone else at the concession stand. So the manager pulls the ticket lady out from the concession stand, puts her in the concession stand, and he starts working the concession. Well, what you've just done is, through contradiction, lost money, because you're now paying someone at a high purpose minimum wage to do a minimum wage job, instead of taking the time to create the system so that you can handle all the business or capability of that business without utilizing that higher level of thinking and price range in order to facilitate the purchase of, refreshments or tickets. People do that all the time. They trip over dollars to make pennies. And those are technical contradictions that exist, of the good and the bad, without taking a deeper breath at what's going on. The second is physical or inherent contradictions. These are situations in which an object or a system suffers contradictory opposite requirements. And everyday examples include: software should be complex, so it should have too many features, but simple and easy to learn. How many times do people develop software, SaaS solutions, that have too many capabilities? And I'll give you an example. Most CRMs today, most SFAs today, your basic PIM applications is what people use. All the bells and whistles are to accommodate people who have developed to please a few questions, instead of getting really good at the basis of what everybody uses, which is personal information management, without all the bells and whistles that are rarely used. How many, on average, percentage of technological capabilities do we use? Less than 50% on all software. Most people use less than 50% of the capability of all software and hardware, by the way, that is there. Pretty incredible that we're developing and wasting over 50% of our time distribution marketing. Another one: coffee should be hot so it can be enjoyed, but cool to avoid burning the drinker. Once again, this is a physical or inherent contradiction within what we do. And I think I mentioned earlier the umbrella example. It has to be large enough to keep the rain off, but small enough to utilize in a crowd or to travel with. And as we look at these as general problems, we look at segmentation that advocates dividing things into different parts to make it easier to take apart. For example, if we have a furniture store and we only have so much room, not only do we want to display the furniture, but we want to be able to store inventory. So this is where the contradiction of being able to take furniture apart and then be able to put it back together. Or now, of course, there's furniture companies like IKEA that are built on the customer putting it together so that they can show these beautiful nightstands and then waste your Saturday putting them all together. There's a few laws that I've developed that apply to these situations. One, the law of ideal. The law of ideal states that any system tends to become more reliable through its life through regular improvement. Consistent, persistent improvement of anything will create the law of ideal. As we indicate we are happy with the product where it's at. We're angling to something better and having faith it'll end up somewhere better than that through consistent, persistent improvement by identifying and paying attention and giving an attention to what we're doing, the law of being ideal. Second, functional modeling. Uh, it's analyzing and trimming, uses methods to define the problem and continually just trim off all the fat and become more efficient and effective of what we do. And then finally, locating where these zones of conflict exist. This is, if anyone's familiar with Six Sigma, their best approach. I call it a root cause analysis, so that when things are being innovated and conflictual, let's look at the root cause of how it is. All of these examples are utilized to generalize a specific problem, and then we can find a generalized answer to that problem and then get specific by adapting the general solution to our specific problem. These four steps can help accommodate a lot of issues that companies experience through innovation into building a company from probability to profitability. Um, the out of the box ideas, lateral thinking, is generally known as PO lateral thinking. Thinking out of the box, many businesses are looking for ways to increase productivity or create new products to gain competitive advantage. Innovation is extremely important for so many large brands. In fact, there's so many innovation labs that exist within the biggest companies in the world because of the value of that innovation, of being able to simply do things better. Lateral thinking is a manner of solving problems using an indirect and creative approach via reasoning that is not obvious. And that's the idea of thinking outside the box, being extraordinary. It involves ideas that may not be obtainable using only traditional step by step logic. And a lot of people call this pseudo science. That's why I encourage people to read and utilize their imagination, because something is relative to something else, and it can actually be utilized as a catalyst to provide an answer that's never been seen before. Also, studying science fiction is another way. A lot of executives that I work with feel as if technology has overcome our imaginations, so that the capabilities of technology have outrun the imagination process of how we think, what we can do, and how we can do it. And so it's so important to practice and expand our imaginations, because now we have technology that can support so many of the different brilliant ideas that you have, the creative notions that you have, allowing you to be a lateral thinker, to think outside the box. And this is essential because the PO lateral thinking stems from support and hypothesis, suppose, possible, poetry. All of these are places where we want to be and go. You need to identify where you want to play. Do you want to play in the possibility realm and just thinking up great ideas, sitting at home high on your mom's couch, dreaming about what it is you want to create? Or do you want to utilize the constraints of these types of thinking from the general to the specific in order to effectuate whether you are clear, balanced, and focused on what attention and intention you're going to give to this idea in order to take that idea from a possibility to a probability, giving it a mathematical advantage? And then, are you going to team up with someone whose expertise is to build the business around your innovation? Do you have a Ray Kroc, or are you a Ray Kroc? Are you capable of utilizing discipline, strategy, and awareness in order to effectuate the economics, so that we're not tripping over dollars to pick up pennies, that we're actually taking the possibility, then the probability, and making it profitable? There's so many different components and nuances. I think most importantly, between innovation and entrepreneurship, we have to determine what our capabilities are. There's a variance of what degree we are all innovators and what degree we are all entrepreneurs. And they vary between all of us. And I think that self inventory and analysis is crucial, so that you can find what you want, what you need, and who can help you. Knowing what those skills are that you have the knowledge of what and who that you have, and also your desire. I think that too many people lie to themselves, whether they're an innovator or an entrepreneur, and in a scarce mindset, cost themselves success because they either can't take a possibility to a probability, or they can't are not able to take a probability to a profit. And those that can take a probability to profit may think that their ideas, because they're capable of taking someone else's innovation to a profit, they think that that transfer of knowledge works within the context of them themselves being an innovator. Find your own variance. See what you want to be, what you need to be, and how you can be it, and get into a collaborative situation that you can utilize the support where you need it. Nobody is 100% innovator and 100% entrepreneur. They do not exist in variance together. It's very important for you to know your innovation and entrepreneurship. Remember, everyone, put your questions in. They're loading up already. Next week is straight Q&A. So I call it BYOQ, ask me anything. You bring the questions, I'll bring the answers. Anybody have in one exercises to this? We have an exercise of entrepreneurship versus innovation. Any questions? It's just david@dmeltzer.com. You can download these trainings, all of them, along with billionaires, millionaires, entrepreneurs, all the great interviews we've done, over 700 episodes of one of the top podcasts in the world. The Playbook, download it, share it. It's on all platforms, Spotify, Entrepreneur, Google, iTunes. You can get it there. Fill up the Q&A. We're going to go between IG, Q&A here, and the Clubhouse. Ask me anything. Next week's training is Ask Me Anything, BYOQ, bring your own questions. We'll be here again on Friday. Let's get the questions going. I'm going to take one right up here. Here we go. How do you fight against your ego? So first of all, you don't fight against your ego. There's not a fight. That's already a predisposition of a losing cause. What we want to do is we want to identify the ego, the primary ego of the Freudian fears, whether it's fight, flee, feed, or the other F word. And then we want to identify the secondary ego-based consciousness, all the needs of the ego that I always repeat, right? The need to be right, separate, inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, angry, guilty, resentful. It's majority of a lot of people's lives are spent identifying the ego. But the last thing you want to do is fight it when you identify it. What we want to do is simply stop. Simply stop when you identify it and breathe. Breathe so that you can get to your center, to your neutral, to your higher frequency, to your flow, so that you can then roll in the right trajectory. Do you know how much time, emotion, money, and relationships you've ruined out of ego, accelerating in the wrong trajectory? It's like driving down the freeway and you're happy as a clam, everything's going your way, and then you realize that you're going the wrong way. Now, that's when you're going the wrong way, is when you're edging goodness out of your life, EGO. When you're going the wrong way, ego, what do we normally do? We try to fight against it. And guess what happens when you try to fight against it? Go over it, under it, through it, around it. You accelerate in the wrong direction. So let's say you're going south on the freeway. We realize, oh my gosh, I'm going the wrong way. Ego, instead of just stopping, turning around and going the right way, we accelerate down the freeway faster because we're mad, angry, etc. We add fuel to the fire. Ego, there we go, emotions on the go, the wrong way. So just stop, drop, and roll. Know that when you're in ego, your mind, your body, your soul are on fire. You're going in the wrong direction. When you're on fire, you got to stop, drop, and roll. Get off the freeway, go back in the right trajectory, in the right direction. That's how we work with our ego, by identifying it, by stopping, by dropping and rolling. All right, who's our first person here? Andre. Oh, Andre Fluellen, my man. The flu is here, NFL superstar and entrepreneur. Andre, you got a question for me?
You know what? I don't really have a question today. I was just on. Actually, no, I take that back. I do have a question now. I'll think about it.
All right, good.
So, as we're talking about ego again, as you just started talking about ego, I've been thinking about ego and these new NFTs that are out, right? And like, think about things like NBA Top Shot that's been going on and all these big NFTs. Like, how much of this is really fueled by ego? Because it's really strange to me that if there's something, right, that can be like a video clip that can be just downloaded or whatever, but just this fact that it's minted and the fact that you can get number one, like, how is this driving the ego? And I'm thinking about from an investor standpoint, because I do investing things. Like, it's hard for me to try to figure out how to invest in something like this when it is like so much fueled by ego. And it has really been bothering my mind because I want to get involved, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to fuel ego. So I don't know how to do both.
Oh man, that is such a good question, Andre. So let me give you my perspective because ego's always involved in investment and how we can take our ego out of investment. And when you talk about something that has a limited supply, whether it be a house that is in front of water where there's no room to build in front of you, or a number one NFT of Dave Meltzer's beautiful sculpture, whatever it may be, there's three components that we can extract the ego out of and become prudent investors in an ego-based market. And the first is, as you suggested, understand the market. And you've just kind of detailed out the market, that it's a supply and demand market based on ego. And so if we can identify the market, next what we want to do is identify the market makers. And why do I say that? Because it's like following the money when you're doing research in a business to see where and how it's made and what expenses are there. If we follow the market makers, then we can understand, who's making money where, because the market makers are going to determine, the heat or the marketing or branding of that limited supply of an NFT. And so if you know the market, an ego-driven market by supply and demand, whether there's 1, 10, or 100, and 2, the market makers, then we can determine when is a good time to buy or sell, right? When is something oversold or undersold? Because the market makers are going to be selling when you should sell and buying when you are buying. And there's so many different people. Let's just take the original, baseball cards. When I started studying the market makers, the guys that were promoting, the unregulated baseball card, and I started realizing, are they buying or selling? Well, when they were buying, I was buying. When the market makers started selling, because remember, a market maker is not only going to make commissions, but they're going to know and play the market on each side when it's overbought or oversold. So any type of ego-based commodity that's in a limited supply, understand the market on how it works, look for the market makers, and then follow their leads on when to buy when it's oversold or sell when it's overbought. Does that sound fair?
Dude, I thought I was going to stump you with that one, but that was excellent, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Keep on trying to stump me, my brother. I have paid millions and millions of dollars of dummy tax. So that better be a good enough investment to answer some of these questions. All right.
Gotcha.
All right, cool. All right. Next up is one of my favorite professional basketball players, Samir Siak. He is a former Tulane Green Waiver and Vanderbilt's finest. He's an incredible entrepreneur. I'm going to take a question online real quick, and then you come up, Samir. You ask me anything. You try to stump. You ask me anything, Dave Meltzer. All right, here we go. How to deal with coworkers who aren't good communicators. Let's call a coworker a collaborator, because I think it stems in all aspects of our lives of relativity, that there's varying degrees of people that we collaborate for varying variants of reasons. And so I want to say, how do we deal with collaborators who aren't good communicators? Well, I use the great chain of feeding in order to facilitate how I'm dealing with someone on their variants of communicative skills. Meaning, if somebody's an excellent communicator, I'm going to feed them. If someone's a horrible communicator, I'm going to let them fall away or separate myself from them. Communication is the ability to connect. And in order for me to effectuate the most statistical success in any collaboration, whether it's personal or professional, so a relative that's personal to me or a coworker, all collaborators of utilizing the best of each of us in order to facilitate an alignment of what we want, you have to be able to utilize and feed those people that are communicating well with you and allowing those that don't communicate well. Now, if you are forced into a situation to collaborate with somebody that is not communicating well, then you better be accountable and ask as many questions as you can to be more interested than interesting, and utilize summarization in order to facilitate the connectivity or the collaboration and alignment with what you're talking about and to who. And so I'll use open-ended questions to try to figure out what's going on with someone that's a poor communicator, get them talking. I'll use closed-ended questions to lead them down the path. And then I'll use summary to make sure that I'm hearing what they're saying. So I might say, okay, tell me about that. Oh, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? These are all open-ended questions that give me an idea of what they're trying to say. Then I'll ask specific questions and say, so would it help you if I did this? Or what you're saying would be something like this, or whatever it is that narrows it down. And then I'll use summarization at the end to say, so what I hear you telling me is, and then through my excellent communication skills, I'm going to regurgitate what I think they're saying. And hopefully they'll give me, yeah, that's it, man. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's how I deal with collaborators, coworkers, personal relatives of mine who are not good communicators. All right. One of my faves in the world, the amazing Samir. What's going on, buddy?
Dave, how are you doing?
I am doing excellent. I'd be doing better if you were here with me, but now you're virtually here. So give me one of your brilliant questions, my friend.
Well, Dave. First of all, I gotta say I learned so much from you on every single one of these calls I get on and listen to you talk. So excited to hear this one. And I think I can speak for a lot of people, as many of us are in very competitive fields. And so, kind of talking about how you spoke about ego, how do we blend when we're in a competitive field? How do we blend competition, our competitive spirits with ego, but then also one of your main topics that you talk about that I love is abundance, right? So how do we mix abundance with our egos, but also being confident in the competitive field that we're in every single day?
Yeah, great question. So you're playing on the wrong field, and you're playing on the wrong field, meaning what you want to do is that you want to compare yourself only to one person, and that's you. Right? When you're playing on the field, the abundant field where you're the only player within the context of yourself, to enjoy the consistent, persistent pursuit of your potential. Because remember, comparison with others only steals your joy. Your performance in a world of abundance, meaning there's more than enough of everything for everyone. In a world where I know just because you have something doesn't mean I can't have it too, or I can't have more of it. I live in a world of more than enough of everything for everyone, where I compete in a ferocious way, right? I'm a ferocious Buddha. So I compete with myself in a ferocious way because I understand the rule of 72, that if I get 1% better in a segment of time, it'll take 72 of those segments to me to double my performance. And if I can get 2% better in that time, it'll take 36 segments to do that. It'll keep getting less and less. But there's only one person to compete with that ferocious behavior, with that competitive, persistent, consistent attitude and discipline, and that's yourself. And you can be so hyper competitive with yourself, and there's no need other than to utilize others as milestones of where I can be and go past. I am not comparing myself to anyone for anything other than to see it as a milestone for me to go past in order to effectuate what I want according to the inventory of my what, my who, my how, my now, and my why. And the ego makes me want to be separate from, inferior of, or superior to other people. And comparison, the thief of joy, is the mechanism that we think we need to not only motivate us to be better, but inspire us to get to where we want to be. It's just not true. There's only one thing you want to compete ferociously with, and that's yourself, your higher self. And you can continue to pursue that according to your own potential, not what other people think what's missing or what you don't want, but what you want and you think you can become. Does that sound fair, my friend?
That sounds really fair. You always help me get myself back to center.
You're my man. Keep coming to these clubhouses, brother. I love seeing you. Thank you. All right. Next up, as I go online to get another question, Baskaran and Ambla Vanen, and you could correct me because I'm the name butcher when you get up here. Let me get this quick question from Aaron Wexler, my friend online. What is the best way to keep working on your business during a scheduled vacation? Keep doing work or take a break? All right, I'm going to shift your entire existence, my boy. You need a vacation every day. There's no such thing as work. Work already creates resistance, void, shortages in your life. There's only activity you get paid for and activity you don't get paid for. And you should schedule vacation time every day. 2 minutes of vacation a day is worth way more than 2 hours on a Saturday. And it's definitely 2 hours every day is worth more than 2 months every year. Look, you can be in a place, a resort, and still make money and still have fun and still help people. You can be sitting at your desk and still make money, still have fun, and still help people. It doesn't matter where you are, it's your ability to learn to love your activity and to define the activity as activity you get paid for and activity you don't get paid for by utilizing what you have planned, you don't have planned in your sleep. But I vacation every day, a minimum amount of time. I have non-negotiables in my life, a minimum amount of time on my health, my family, my activity I get paid for, all of these different things. And I vacation. I actually use the control I have of my mindset to vacation every day, not just meditation, not just working out, stretching, not just eating as if I'm on vacation, not just taking a walk or a ride down to the beach, whatever it may be. Do it every single day, 7 days a week. I think that if you need a break, that's more than a break of the day. If you need to take a breath or rest, that's cool. But if you need a break from activity that you have in your life, a break of 2 weeks, 2 months, you're doing something wrong. You should be enjoying the consistent, persistent pursuit of your potential, and you should be vacationing every single day. Don't allow your location to determine if you're on vacation. Great question. All right, Baskaran, thank you so much. If you could pronounce your name so I don't butcher it next time and then ask me your question, I would love it.
Thank you, David. You got it right. Bhaskaran Ambalawanan. I'm an HR technology consultant based in Orange County, California. Thanks for having me. We are talking about ego, right? So in my view, healthy dose of ego is actually good, right? It can help in willpower or resilience. So where is the boundary? Where do we set the boundary, right? Between the healthy dose of ego versus altered ego, or amplified ego. Where do you set the boundary?
Oh,
I'm speaking.
yeah. And thank you. Even a blind squirrel finds an acorn. I guess I got a name right for once. So, Justin, nanny on you, always making fun of me for ruining names. More importantly, so the ego is healthy in motivation. This is my perspective. Please, everyone, give me your input on this because I'm still exploring through a lot of study and research. But I believe the ego is healthy for motivation. See, the ego, fear-based emotion, the need to be right, offended, separate, inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, angry, guilty, separate, etc. It will get you up. It'll get you back up. It'll get you started. It will get you restarted, but it's not going to get you there. So the balance for me is to understand the context of utilizing my ego to give me that boost, that rocket fuel to get me up, get me back up, get me started, get me back started, but be able to utilize a plateau and grow strategy of clearing the interference, shifting my paradigm of what the ego does in the long term, which is soul suck you, which is create void, shortages, and obstacles, which creates separation from what we truly want. And it instead makes us think that we can go get what we want because it's a very aggressive, adrenaline based perspective of the ego. And what we want to do is utilize that inertia to clear away all the interference, void, shortages, and obstacles, and then allow things to happen. And that allows us to balance this persistent and patience. It allows us to use temperance in our lives so that the ego can get us up, get us started, get us back started. But it's going to be the clearing of the ego, the stop, drop, and roll process of using our higher power of thinking, our neutral state of mind to be in the flow, to allow things to take that inertia and that momentum to get what we want rapidly and accurately. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, David.
Thank you. I love these questions. I got the brightest audience in the entire universe. I will tell you, these questions are bringing it. Anthony Mendez, my friend, you come up next. I'm going to take a quick question online as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining me on the Innovation versus Entrepreneur training. Next week's Bring Your Own Questions. So the whole time is going to be these questions. I'm going to have to take a extra nap to get ready because these are tough. All right, here we go. What's one innovation you wish you came up with? Oh, that's easy. An egoectomy. I am so far in my own way. I wish I could create an egoectomy or an egoectomy pill that says, okay, I am so far in my own way. I am moving in the wrong trajectory. I'm wasting time, emotion, and resources and relationships because of my fear, because of my insecurity, because of my projection. I am already health, wealth, and happiness. I literally just have to figure out through this pill, this invention, this innovation, how can I clear away what exists between me and what I already am? And so that innovation would be brilliant. The second one for environment would be, I want to create a spray that I can close the hole in our environment so I can shift our our own atmosphere and fill it back up, and so I could protect us all with the air first. Those would be two innovations that I like, both to protect us and to heal us and to allow us be what we already are. Great question as well. Anthony Mendez, give me your question.
David, how's it going, brother? Really appreciate you, doing what you do. Always enjoying your stuff, man, and the knowledge and just the abundance of love that you bring to everybody here. So I appreciate that. First of all, just want to say thank you. My question would be, talking about the ego, the whole thing that we got into the unhealthy and healthy ego. When it comes to a leadership standpoint, and when you're working with your team, people come in of all sorts. So there might be different egos, unhealthy, healthy, different variances of it. How do you, or what are the steps that you take to be able to, as a leader, teach them how to, use it, like you were saying, for motivation, and then also as well, teach them how to be able to understand how it can also hurt them if they don't know how to control it the right way when it comes to a team setting? How do you go about that?
Yeah, it's a very tricky question, and thank you so much. So first, defining leadership and defining who you are as a leader can really help you in defining how you can communicate ego in its positive aspects as well as its negative aspects. For me, I believe leading as an intelligent follower allows me to align what I know or find someone who does know what that person needs. Each individual, my mom had 6 kids and she would always say, I don't treat my children equally because that would mean that they're the same. One of my kids may need to work while they're in high school, the other may not. One may need me to help them with buying a house, the other may not. All of us, our children, are different. And so I love to be an intelligent follower as a leader and learn about where the ego exists and where the ego is being utilized in a positive direction per employee or associate, or manager, director, executive, whatever it may be. And where do I find that I can be of a service or assistance in raising the awareness to whatever interference that ego-based consciousness is causing, that for them as an individual or a collective consciousness. Now, as an intelligent follower, what we want to really do is look for what they need to utilize and the best tools and capabilities and where to find that information as well. So I think the 4 steps of being an intelligent follower as a leader is: 1, help them identify which ego-based consciousnesses are most beneficial and most deterrent to them. Then teach them to stop, drop, and roll accordingly, to stop and find their center, their neutral. I do a lot of value-based training so that people can be equipped with the tools to not only learn, but also teach and carry on and empower others to empower others with these ego-based education capabilities, like gratitude, which will help you find the light, the love, and the lessons, or center. Gratitude will give the right perspective to all the intelligent followers out there. And forgiveness as a leader, right? To be able to have peace within your organization and to be forgiving even of the unforgivable, which would bring certainty if you ever could do that. And then accountability is huge. I find taking accountability for when we are in our own way, when we've created interferences, voids, and shortages and projected our insecurity, either primal ego or secondary ego, that has created all types of different interference in what we're trying to do. To simply teach everyone, ask yourself in this situation, what did I do to attract this to myself? And what am I supposed to learn from it? I find in the collective, very often people deal, especially lawyers or recovering lawyers like myself, with liability all the time. Blame, shame, and justification. That will kill a collective consciousness. It will allow the ego to create separation, voids, shortages, and obstacles. So utilize gratitude, forgiveness, and accountability as an intelligent follower in order to effectuate a collective consciousness by empowering them to use these skills and capabilities to effectuate getting rid of that interference and enlightening and learning it for themselves instead of telling them, allow them to experience through this methodology. Does that sound fair?
Oh, 100%. Really appreciate that, man. Really appreciate the details and everything you just, delivered over here. Really appreciate that. I'm going to use that myself.
Awesome. And these replays are on the playbook. So if I talk too fast, I apologize. I'm trying to answer as many questions as I can. You can download the playbook. You can also get from me just the exercises, guides, my books for free. David at D Meltzer, or download the playbook. It's on every platform featured there. All right, I'm gonna take another question. Thank you. I'm gonna take another question online. This name I definitely can pronounce. She wants me to call her my favorite daughter, Marissa Meltzer. Your question, bring it up after I answer this question online. It's so good to see you. You're welcome. I got to come to the clubhouse to see my daughter. That's wonderful. Here we go. If you were teaching a college class, what would it be? That is so easy. And I think they started one of the Ivy League schools. I think Yale started teaching my class. Dave Meltzer E-School. You heard of B-School before? David Meltzer E-School is simply the class of happiness. The class of happiness. I'm going to teach abundant. I'm going to teach people you don't have to live in a world of not enough where you're a victim, where things happen to you. You don't have to live in a world of just enough for me, thinking you're an optimist by buying things you don't need, different things you don't need to impress people you don't like, doing things you don't like. Instead, I am going to teach a class on abundance, on pure happiness, to enjoy the consistent, persistent pursuit of your potential, not what other people want from you or what's missing or what you don't want, because it's definitely going to come. I'm going to give everybody an A in this class. As a collective, we are going to learn how to not only be happy, but empower others to be happy, to empower others to be happy, to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. Everybody sign up for David Meltzer E-School. It's free. That's why it's E. And next, I have my oldest daughter, the light of my life, Marissa Meltzer. You got a question for me?
Yeah, so I actually need you to answer fast because I have an informational interview in 5 minutes. But about that though. So anyway, I have an interview in 5 minutes and it's a networking interview. And I wanted to know what's your advice going into that, to be more interested than interesting and not let my ego get in the way of it, in the sense that I feel like when I have interviews sometimes I get really nervous and kind of stumble over that I don't realize that I have all these great experiences, and I just need to be more confident when I go into these interviews.
Exactly. You got to learn to love you. You are not going to be more prepared in that interview because you're nervous. You're not going to be more prepared in the last 5 minutes of an interview. But the one thing that you are is you. And so when you become confident that other people love you, I love you, so many people, you've been successful in everything you've done, why won't you be capable of answering questions honestly and asking questions honestly? It's just as important to ask the right questions as it is to give the right answers. And so if you are right, and if you're curious, if you're more interested than interesting, you will gain more credibility and emotional attachment in an interview by being curious and showing that you have a different level of understanding of what's going on with either the career, the industry, the company, the job in particular. So make sure that you are yourself, you are your own frequency, and you are asking those questions. I always say ABC in an interview, not always be closing, but always be curious, be more interested than interesting. And most importantly, be yourself. here's where I gained confidence when I was interviewing. When I started realizing that if I didn't get the job, that it was a good thing because I was being pushed to somewhere better, a better position, a better job, a better paying job. And I can tell you from the older people that are on here, we'll all agree we feel so lucky when we didn't get our dream house or we didn't get our dream job, because sure enough, later on, the dream house and the dream job appeared and we were like, oh, thank goodness I didn't take that. Oh my gosh. And so when you feel confident that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, love yourself, you're doing everything you can by ABC, being curious and asking questions and being yourself, angling to the job you want, and then having faith that you're going to end up somewhere better, either better within that organization or better outside of it with a better industry, career, job, or employment. Does that sound fair?
Yes, thank you. I'm excited. I'll do well. I'll let you know how it goes later.
I know you will. I'm so proud of you. Good luck. I love you. All right. Love you. Lavonda Norman, I'm going to bring you up for the last question. We got 3 minutes left. I'm going to take one quickly online while you come up real quick. Is anyone else? No, hold on. That's about IG. It's back up. Do you ever use visualization? What's your process? Yes. I'm a huge visualization person. I use it every single day. I have vision boards all around, but I put not only items I want to pay attention to on my vision board, but I put intention into my vision board. I put emotions and feelings on, not just a trip to Bora Bora with my family, but I start putting icons and other things that represent emotionally how it's going to make me feel. And so I use visualization in my meditation, vision boards, iconic reminders. I have 2 words on my nightstand: radically humble, which is a visualization tool to remind myself to be more interesting than interesting, that I don't know what I don't know, to remind myself of the 5 daily practices and the 4 values that I have, which everyone can email me for. I'll send it to you for free. It's in my book. I'll send you that for free, david@dmeltzer.com. We can continue. This is the last question. Next week is all Ask Me Anything. So bring your questions all hour next time. So I apologize if I didn't get you, but you're welcome to reach out to me, david@dmeltzer.com. Lavonda, what do you have for me?
Oh, this is great. Save the best for last. I am super excited to finally get to talk to you. So my quick question is just, I actually need ego because currently I'm in an environment in a job where just the amount of disorganization and craziness makes me physically ill. And every now and then I have these kind of serendipitous moments. A couple of days ago, I reached out to a speaker who I love. He has a show. I know you've probably heard of him, Anthony Scaramucci. He has Salt Talks. And so I contacted one of his people because they had asked me something about some sort of investment. And I wasn't interested in it, but I said, I think Anthony should have this guy on his show. His name is, I gave him the name. And I said, he has been, very influential in my life. And they were like, oh, yeah, well, just, send us the email. We might. And so I sent the email. And so they sent me an email back saying, well, we'd like to have your guy on the show. So we'll reach out in a couple of months. And I was like, oh, wow, I just probably got someone a speaking engagement. But those kind of moments don't come often. And then I'm also surrounded 40 hours a week in a job where I feel like I'm incompetent. So how do I just get that consistent, ego or self-esteem? Like, I know I could do better things, but it's just like, how do I consistently kind of grasp for that positive ego, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so many people are on that journey and have that quest. And, I have a saying that says, we can't love what we do. We have to learn to love what we do. So whatever activity it is that is creating this ego-based consciousness, this separation, this interference, these void shortages and obstacles between us and what we already are, health, wealth, happiness, etc. What we want to do is take each of these circumstances when you're not feeling the love for yourself, when you're not feeling the competency of yourself. And I need you to stop for a second. And I just need you to breathe deep through your nose, out through your mouth. And I think, whatever mantra may be utilized, but I want you to take the time at center, at peace, to think about, what is it about this that I can change so that I can learn to love this? Can I learn to love the outcome? Can I learn to love the challenge? Can I learn to love the lessons, the love, the light, Where can I find it? And when you create a habit machine of finding the light, the love, and the lessons, and learning to love everything you do, and slowly but surely allowing that to aggregate in the positive to you, remembering that negative behavior is always in favor, meaning negative behavior will always overcome if we put our attention and intention into what bothers us, what we can't do, what we're missing. So I want you to shift that paradigm of perspective and tell yourself, I have the power in all circumstances. I have the power in all circumstances to learn to love what I'm doing. And I'm going to take my time just to do that and to practice doing that. And every day I realize it's progress, not perfection, but I am happy, I am healthy, and I am wealthy. And I'm going to do everything I can to clear the interference between me, my health, my wealth, and my happiness. Thank you so much. I'm so glad. And feel free to recommend me anytime with that kind of luck. I'll pay you a commission, girl. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone. And another extraordinary Friday training, 1 year online. We have gone from a few hundred people in person where I have to buy everyone lunch to, I think we're over 29,000 people registered. Yeah, 29,000 people registered for our training. Hundreds of thousands of people download it. I want to get to millions of people. That's my goal, to empower over 1 billion people. Let's do it together. Download the playbook. Email me, david@dmeltzer.com. Most importantly, everybody, come back. We can do it every Friday. You can get the replays, like I said, on the playbook, but be kind to your future self and do good deeds. See you next week. Love you. Bye.
This January comes the next hit business show, 2-Minute Drill. 4 companies will have 2 minutes to pitch their business, competing for $50,000 in cash and prizes. Will they rise to the occasion or crumble under the pressure?
You want to give yourself a critique or what?
Crunching your way to a healthier new you.
This is a great idea. Too bad you have it.
David Meltzer hosts 2-Minute Drill.